Marie. Thanks for tuning in. Today we are tackling hemlines. So, I was recently in a wardrobe fitting and I had the stylist was putting me in the costumes and she had me in an outfit and then she realized that the skirt I was wearing was about an inch and a half too long and it was making me look short. So I kind of picked her brain a little bit because I think I forgot how important hemlines can be. Even those minute changes, they can really make you look taller, slimmer, more youthful, more trendy, all the good things. And I realized that there were some skirts that had made their way into the back of my closet and weren't being worn anymore only because the hemlines were wrong, or not to where they should be for me right now. So I'm going to take you through a tutorial on how to properly hem a skirt from beginning to end. The same rules would apply if you're going to do a pair of pants. And if you want to undo a hem on a skirt or a pair of pants to make it a little bit longer, all you have to do is you just take out the initial stitches and then you can follow the last few steps of the tutorial to just turn that hem up and just finish it off really nicely. If you're dealing with jeans and you want to get a little extra length out of your jeans, if you had a pair that just has like a normal basic jean denim hem like this, if you were to undo this, you do actually get about an inch, which sometimes can make the difference if you just want to be able to wear them with heels or whatever. So you just have to go in and just undo the stitches there, and then your jeans are going to look something like this. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. It's actually the released hem, which is pretty trendy right now, which is pretty helpful for us. And you do get a little bit of the fade marks, but that's how they're wearing them. And you can even let the ends like fray, because that seems to be how all the cool kids are doing it. And it's like the easiest thing ever. You just unpick it, let it go. You can press it out a little bit, and then you got cool frayed jeans. Cool beans. Yeah, and even if you're doing a denim skirt and you do want to shorten it, you could just cut it and then get yourself a little safety pin and just fray the edges. And that's super cute too. That's a quick way to shorten a denim skirt. Okay, let's get hemming. So this is a cute vintage skirt that's been hiding in the back of my closet. I love the pockets and the pleats, but it's just way too long on me and hitting me at not a great spot. So we're going to use the mirror to help us out. If you have a friend, that's even easier. You can have them help you. So first, we just need to decide on a length. So they say you want your hemline to be at the smallest part of your leg. So most ladies, our widest points would be the mid-thigh and the mid-calf. We want to avoid those places. The narrowest part is at the knee and the ankle. So the most universal flattering length is to have it hit you just above the knee or at the knee, especially if you're petite, because it's going to help you look taller. If you want to do the full length dress, the rule of thumb is that you want to have it hit you just at the ankle bone, or let it go right to the floor and then wear heels, because that way it'll at least elongate your legs all the same. So I'm trying to decide on the length of my skirt here, and all I'm doing is pinning it up so I can see what it would look like. So I think I like this length. So now I'm going to mark where I want the true hemline to be, and I put pins across that line there. Perfect. And here we go. So this is our skirt. I've got my hemline marked with my pins. So the other pins were just holding up the fabric so I could see what it was going to look like. So I'm going to take all of them out so we can see how much fabric I'm going to have to cut off here. Okay, so we're measuring from where we want the new hem to be to where our current hem is, and it's 11.5 inches. So generally you want your hem to be about an inch and a half. I don't have a serger, so I'm going to have to turn it up another half an inch. And I have a sneaking suspicion I might want it a little bit longer than what I've marked. So I've actually measured 2.5 inches from my true hem. So you see that first chalk line is lined up with the pins, and then I've measured 2.5 inches down, and then I've made sure that it's 11.5 inches from the original hem all the way along. Now I'm doing the other side. So this is taking into account that my current hem is even and straight. That's how I'm able to do this, because I know that the hem is even all the way around. So measuring from it is an accurate way of doing it. And here we go. So now we're going to cut off that extra amount. I don't recommend you try to cut both sides at the same time. I've cut up the side and I'm cutting one side and then I'm going to flip it around. So you can see that I still have left that 2.5 inches from where I want my hem to end up, because that will be the fabric that we use to turn it up really nicely. And cutting off the other side. Then we take out those pins because we don't need them anymore. And then we've got our skirt cut and it's turned inside out and we're ready for the hem. So I don't have a serger, so I am turning up the hem about a 1/2 inch and I'm going to top stitch it so that the ends don't fray. If you have a serger, you can just skip this step and just serge the end, or you could even do a wide zigzag on your machine if your machine does that, and that'll have the same desired effect. So then we're just going to top stitch it all the way around the whole skirt. You get the idea. Let's jump to the next step. So now would be a good time to try your skirt on again, just to check the length. So we've got our skirt inside out and we've got a turned up little hem here. So remember we had 2.5 inches. We've turned it up that 1/2 inch. So I've got 2 inches left. And I was right. I had a sneaking suspicion I wasn't going to want it that short. And instead of turning it up the full amount, I'm just going to turn it up 1 inch. So 2 inches would have been too wide for a hem anyways. It's a lot of fabric to turn up. So that's why I did the extra amount. So what I've done here is I've measured 2 inches from the seam, but that's just going to be where I fold the hemline up to. You'll see right here what I mean. So this way, when I'm turning up the hem, I'm just going to that line. So I'm only turning up 1 inch of fabric. And then I'm going to pin it in place. You could do this step on your ironing board and you could iron it as you go to get a nice pressed hemline. I'm going to iron it afterwards just because it's easier for me to show you on this. So you go around and do the whole hem. You can see I've marked it and then I'm pinning it up. And there we go. So now we're going in for the stitch. So this is called a catch stitch, or they often call it a herringbone stitch. I'm going to use a white thread and I'm going to make it nice and big so you can see it. So to start the stitch, we're actually going to be going from the right to left, even though the stitch is going left to right. That sounds confusing, but it'll make sense in a second. So we're going to come through to the hemmed part here. So I haven't gone through the back of the skirt yet. And then we're going to come up and you're going to catch the tiniest amount of fabric on the actual base of the skirt. And you're going to push it through. And you don't want it to get it too tight, because the tighter you go, actually the more that the stitches will show up on the other side. You don't want to go too loose because you don't want it to fall, but you kind of have to play with it to see where is the right amount for your fabric. And then I'm catching the hem, but just the hem. So I stuck my finger behind it to make sure it didn't go all the way through. And then coming back up. You can see that the X is kind of being formed. This is a pretty wide version of the stitch, just so you can see it. And again, catching the tiniest amount. We're going from the right to the left. And coming back down and catching the hem, making sure not to go all the way through. You can see you're kind of creating this sort of X zigzag. And it's going to hold the hem up and also keep it nice and flat. When you're doing this, you want to make sure, if you're going to wear the skirt with tiny, tiny heels, then you don't want to make the stitch too big, because you might catch your heel in the hem of your skirt. I've seen it happen before. You can see I'm trying to catch the tiniest amount of fabric on the back, and I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. So this is a very wide version of the stitch. You can make it smaller. They often use this stitched in embroidery actually, because it looks pretty neat when it's done. So if we flip it over, you can see it because that's why I use the white thread, but it's the tiniest, tiniest little bits that come through. And it's pretty awesome. It's a really handy stitch to know. So here we go with the appropriate colored thread. When done well with the right color, you really can barely see it from the other side. So we're starting the same way, taking the tiniest bit amount of fabric, going from the right to the left, making sure not to go too tight. And then on the hem, making sure not to go through to the other side. Again, not going too tight. And then we're just repeating ourselves. This stitch also works really well on any kind of knit fabric. If you need to hem a skirt with stretch to it. Also, the great thing about stretch fabric is when you initially cut the hem, you don't have to worry about the hem fraying, so you don't have to do any extra steps. You just basically have to turn it up, and then you can do the stitch. Because it's the way that the stitch is built, kind of like a ladder, gives it lots of room to move with the stretch. So we'll keep moving along here with this stitch till we get a few more. And voila! That's what it looks like with the right colored thread. And then from the other side, see? You can barely see it. It's like magic. So here is the whole skirt done. I just put on some Netflix and got at it. And I gave it a really good pressing so it's nice and flat. And it looks pretty awesome. And here is our finished skirt. I love it at this length. I think it's a little bit more fun, a little bit more youthful. I think I'm going to get a lot of wear out of it this spring and this summer. I can't wait. Thanks again for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, please do subscribe to the channel. And you can always come hang out with me on Instagram at Wallace Reed. See ya!